Good morning and good afternoon to everyone who has joined us. Thank you for being here. We are excited to talk through AI search with you today and what you can expect in this new landscape and how you can thrive with your schools and your programs. So, a quick agenda in terms of what we're going to be looking at today. We want to introduce you to us as a company, as a team, what AI search is, popular platforms people are using, the difference between perhaps SEO and GEO, which we'll get into, some different testing models. We want you to walk away with a checklist, and then we'll also have some time for a question and answer to make sure we hit any points that you have. So, who we are. So we are MF Digital. We are a 13-year-old digital marketing company, and we focus specifically on graduate programs. So because we are able to hone in on our expertise, we know the unique experiences and specific scenarios that come about with programs and schools such as yours in order to connect prospective students to your program. So that is what we do. We are solely graduate program marketing. So as you can see, we walk through, along with your admissions team, from nurturing prospective students all the way through until we get them to apply. So it's both from a nurturing standpoint, and then we create the demand so that we know that we're drumming up the interest for your school. So we've worked with schools across the country. As you can see here, just a snapshot of some of the names that we have been fortunate enough to work with. So now I want to share who we are on the call with you. So I'm Rebecca Aldrich, and I'm the Performance Marketing Manager here at MF Digital. With me today, we have Dave Tan and Jesse Homan. And so I will let the gentlemen introduce themselves. Dave, if you'd like to go first and give us a little bit of your backstory.
Sure. Thank you, Rebecca. And hello, everyone. Great to be here and talking with all of you. I've known MF Digital for quite some time. But as Rebecca prompted, longtime digital marketing, executive across brands on the agency side, and most recently at Google for over 14 years, running the US agency team, both on the performance side and then as of late, the whole agency team. So I like to say I have three different hats on and can kind of engage on many sides of that equation. To be sure, Google on the partnership and business development sales side of the house, not on the product side. So I'm not going to go super deep on some SEO things that you may have questions on. But yes, at Google, which you are certainly quite familiar with, Google search, but yes, YouTube, Waze, Maps, Waymo, Cloud, that is the big part of all things Google. But very excited to be part of this conversation today. Jesse.
Great. Thanks, Dave. So my name is Jesse Homan. I'm the Vice President for Strategic Growth here at MF Digital. I have 17 years of higher education marketing experience. Most of that is focused and has been focused on the graduate market, also the adult learning market to some extent, but mostly focused on graduate programs in law, graduate programs in business and health. So I have a long time work both on campus and off campus in building audiences for online and residential programs at the graduate level. And I'm really excited to be here today and to be talking to you about AI search, how it's changing our current landscape, and the impacts that it's already had, even with the kind of a smaller adoption rate in a short time for it to grow. It's already making a large impact on how programs are interacting with their audiences. And so I'm excited to talk through that today. To start off with, talking about how did we get here? What are we talking about? Why should this be a topic of interest to people who are running graduate programs? It's the first thing to know is what we're not talking about. So there are a lot of ways in which AI is currently impacting higher education, both on the student side and on the administration side. What we are not discussing today, what is not under kind of what we're going to be talking about with AI tools, are tools that students are using once they are students in the classroom, either as testing aids for essay writing, tools for research. These are things that are, we're focused on before they become students and the tools that students are using to engage with your program beforehand. So we're also not talking about the ways that administrations can be currently adopting AI, whether that's with application help, grading papers, quiz test creation, right? Findings, AI tools that find students using AI tools, right? Like those are things that we're not talking about today. We are focused on the ways in which students are engaging with your organic content, with your website through the use of AI search tools. So what are AI search tools? They are tools that prospective students are using to research potential schools, and that is changing the enrollment process. What it is essentially doing is creating a veil, a digital curtain between you and your organic content and the audience that you are trying to reach, generally students, right? It could be parents, but for the most part, we're talking about prospective students who are researching about potential programs that they're going to use for their career advancement. They are no longer, to a certain extent, going to your website. They are instead researching you through ChatGPT, through Google Gemini, or through AI mode with Google. Or like they are using these tools to see information about you, and they are not engaging with your full website. So to give a few of the challenges that can bring about, right? Like thinking about what does this mean for us? Why is this impacting us? What could be going on that we aren't seeing? I'm going to go through a few quick examples, and then we'll go back to kind of talking through what AI search is and how it works. So what this leads to are potential accuracy challenges that students could be coming across. In this search using AI mode from Google, I looked for law school legal master's programs at the University of Tennessee. The University of Tennessee does have a legal master's program. It's called an MLS degree. They do not have an LLM program. What this did is correctly identify that University of Tennessee did not have an LLM program, but it also said they don't have a Master of Legal Studies or a Master of Jurisprudence program. That's not true. University of Tennessee has one of these programs and has for several years now. So something about the way that they have their content on their website is not showcasing that information. And something that I don't have on the slide here, but want to highlight is if you do a regular Google search for this with the same search string, you will find their organic page that talks about their MLS program, right? So Google's search engine is using the same tech behind it. It is using the same Googlebot that does all the indexing and crawling, but it digests content in different ways. And if your content on your website is not set up to be optimized for these crawlers, they can make you completely invisible. And as we'll discuss later on, most people are taking these AI answers as completely true. They're not following up on any of the citations. They're not following up on any of the links provided. They read it and they believe it. So if you're University of Tennessee right now, your program to anybody doing AI search does not exist. That is an issue, right? Like that should be a wake-up call to anybody in administrating any program, is that you can be completely invisible if you don't have your content set up in the correct way. Another challenge is the way in which they describe your program, even if they see it correctly. So for instance, with Barry University, with this search string, they said it's worth noting that the average law school debt nationwide is around $108,000, and the debt that you owe is $130,000 after law school. Some studies indicate that a significant portion of law school graduates feel stressed and anxious about their debt. If I am Barry University, this is not what I want when somebody searches for me. This is not content that I want cultivated in any way. They're basically telling me that getting a JD, regardless of which program you go to, is maybe not a good idea, right? Like, so that's an issue, right? Like, and that comes from the content that Barry University has on their site and the content that Google is finding from third-party sites, and it is synthesizing those data points together. This is an issue for you. How you are represented is no longer in your control completely. Similarly, there are potential consistency challenges with AI search. So if you do the same search again with the exact same search string, you can get different answers. And here I have gotten a different answer running the same exact search for the same exact program. Instead, it doesn't tell me that getting a law degree is going to bring a lot of debt. Instead, it says Barry University appears slightly less expensive than the national average. That's great. If I'm Barry University, that's awesome. That's exactly what I want students to be seeing, that it is true about me. It is something that I want to highlight, about my program, is that we're affordable and you should come here, right? Like that is what we want people to see. But because of the way that their content is structured, it's not guaranteed that the answer will include this information. So by optimizing your content on your organic page, you can skew answers to give it the content that is more accurate and most helpful to students, right? Like, it is to the good that students see accurate, relevant information. And if they're getting mixed messages or they're getting inaccurate information, that's not helpful to them. They need to be able to see the right information in front of them. But as of now, schools are not optimizing their content to highlight this. And so anybody researching with these tools is going to be getting a mixed experience. Okay, so to take a step back and kind of learn about what we're talking about, how does this work? How did we get here? What is semantic search? What is large language models? What does it mean? What do they do? It is simply a data searching technique that focuses on understanding contextual meanings and intent behind a user's search query, rather than using keywords, right? Like, instead of focusing on keywords, it focuses on intent. So if I say Barry University JD, tuition, it infers what I mean is I'm interested in going to Barry University. I want to know how much it costs, and I want to know other factors about why I should go there too. And so it will attempt to answer all of those questions that are inferred by the single query that I make. So they're much more dependent on accurate, valuable information on authoritative websites. They derive meaning from what they see as authoritative sources, and then they segment that data in chunks. We are working with chunks of data with semantic search rather than keywords. That is kind of the fundamental difference of what we're talking about. They use natural language by using segmented chunks of data that they're drawing from your content. So what do users think AI search is? They think that they're perfect sci-fi robots. They think that they are, the Vision from Marvel. They think that they are getting super accurate information, that they have contextual, subjective opinions about things, that they can discern, what's good and what's bad. They think that this is an artificial intelligence that is synthesizing data and giving them an answer. This is not true. This is not the case. This is not how large language models function. It is not what they're meant to do. They're not meant to do this, and they are not developed to do this. They are not intelligent. LLMs pull language together in a way that looks like natural language, but is not thinking behind it. It is not discerning. They're doing nothing other than digesting all the content they can access and then spitting it back out to you, right? They are useful, incredibly useful tools for collating research and decreasing the time needed to cross-reference data. But as we've seen with our early examples, they're not infallible, and they need to be monitored. That you need to be monitoring them. You need to be monitoring how people are engaging with your content on them, because if not, they can hallucinate incorrect information or give mixed responses, as we've seen before. They're not hallucinating something that's not there, but they are giving kind of mixed results based on how in that moment it's answering the query. So, going over some quick facts. Education is the fastest growing sector of AI search. This is generally the reverse of what we see in higher education as a sector. Generally, higher education lags in technology. Other sectors are quicker to pick it up and run with it, and then education comes behind over the next 5 to 7 to 10 years, and then they finally engage with it. Instead, we are seeing early adoption for education and massive adoption versus other sectors. Now, this percentage includes, this is not all just prospective student searches. This is also students looking up homework answers and like trying to get their math done through AI. It's also teachers using it as a teaching tool and things like that, right? Like, all of education is seeing an early and quick adoption rate versus other sectors in this realm. And to that extent, this makes sense, right? Because higher ed is a research-based industry, whether you're looking for where you want to go to school or once you're in school, how you should be doing your studies, right? Like, that's very research-based, is informational in nature. This is where AI search tools thrive. It's where they do their best work. So it makes sense that education is adopting this early, but it is something that we need to reckon with, that people are using it, students are using it, adoption is only going to rise. You need to have a plan in place for how you are engaging with it so that you are not left behind, so that your program is not made invisible. So what are some of the things that people are using? ChatGPT, Perplexity, AI mode, there's others. Currently, AI search represents a small percentage of total web traffic referrals. Referrals here means they search for something in AI search mode and then they click on a link to go to an organic site of about 1%. But that adoption rate is not fully showing how many people are using these tools, because many, if not most, searches from an AI search tool live in the AI search tool and they don't click out. This is the issue that we're seeing. So the measurement of how many referrals we have is not indicative of the amount of audience that is using it. You are going to see stealth applicants rise over the next few years because many people are going to be using AI search tools, not clicking into the website or filling out an RFI form, and instead coming only when they're looking to apply. So this is what we're looking at, is a realm in which adoption rates are increasing while website visits are potentially decreasing. We're seeing much faster, our quicker adoption rates than we were currently expecting. ChatGPT traffic increased, exponentially just from Q3 to Q4 in 2024, and ChatGPT is generally the most trafficked option at this point, only because it was the first on the market. However, it's my opinion that AI search mode from Google is going to quickly overtake it, simply because it is plugged into the native environment of Google search. It is something that everybody uses Google, and so they're going to maneuver to everybody using AI search mode. I just think that it's going to be the main tool going forward. But as of right now, ChatGPT is seeing the most traffic.
And Jesse, if I may, just again, for everyone in the audience's context, if you recall your own engagement with Google or Bing across the past decade, you have seen the search engine results page change dramatically over that decade. And I do think with AI mode, with Gemini that you might be using, and certainly with chat, all of those will continue to increase. And to Jesse's point earlier on the large language models, which were built on BERT, which was another transformative technology that Google had, it is allowing for the index and the search engines and chatbots to be able to understand so much more context in very long sentences. And that's what I think we are training and helping prospective students, consumers get better at. Google search used to be 1 or 2 keyword searches. I think now the average is around 4.5, 5 words. But now with the amount of chats that people are engaging with, they're multi-sentence long. Compare this, compare that. I'm looking for this. I'm wanting to do deep research here, et cetera, et cetera. And that is how I do think Google, Bing, chat itself, Perplexity, Claude, et cetera, will continue to adapt and grow and provide, I think, a different experience for different use cases. Continued Google search will happen, but as well, AI mode and chat will also be around to further give deep research for folks who are leveraging it. And you can be doing both at the exact same time in different browser windows. So that is, I think, the newer part of how consumers are engaging. I see it with my kids. I see it with myself. There's just different inputs versus what we've seen before, where we just kind of go to Google or Bing or whatever else and try to get an answer. Another factoid: people search with Lens or through Google Images. And again, with technology improving, if you asked me 14 years ago at Google if people would be using a lens to search for what is that plant, to how do I treat it, how do I better grow basil, these are just different inputs that we have now provided consumers to better leverage all of the context that is around them in their world. So that I think that is an important note. And back to this audience, putting yourself in the prospective student's research world is how you want to be engaging with, to I think what Jesse and Rebecca are truly pushing, and thinking through how is that content that you have ready to be found by the same types of bots, but now in a way that can better answer deep, deep questions and research.
Yeah, no, I think that that's absolutely on point. And one thing that I think is key about something you said when you were talking about your kids' adoption of this, it's something that I feel like sometimes graduate programs can miss the mark on, which is thinking about their audience today and what that audience looks like today and what they like today. We are not that far removed from younger, people, teenagers that are going to become adults, that are going to become future grad students, who this is the way they engage with internet and this is the way that they engage with research, is to heavily utilize AI. So while an older audience may be tentatively using it, not seeing as much adoption, but are trying it out, seeing how it works, whatever, you know, the people that are 6, 7 years down the road, this is going to be the way they interface with everything, as you say, with Lens and things like that, where they're looking through the camera and asking questions. This is how they are going to come on board. And so having a strong strategy going forward is going to be key, not just for today, although it will be important, but for your program down the road. Like, you need to be engaging with this early, because it is going to become the way people interact with their research, right? Like, they will be using multiple tools, and one of those tools heavily will be AI. So just to give a little bit more context for when we talk about these lower adoption rates, what that means, there are about 448 billion Google searches in the US in 1 month. So when we talk about adoption rates or referral rates of 1%, we are still talking about millions and millions of searches across the country. So while we are seeing adoption rates, rise quicker than anticipated, even those lower, when we say they're lower amounts or single digit percentages, that is in the context of the normal use case of the internet, very, very high. That means that we have quickly seen millions of people start to use this as a resource. Something else that I think is important to keep in mind, just as Dave was saying, the volume of queries that Google gets are skewed heavily towards informational queries. And this is where we live in higher ed. Whether they're using it as students or whether they're using it as prospective students, information and research is where all of our industry lives. This is where we see the bulk of the audience engage with. So the bulk of the queries of the billions of searches are generally skewed towards higher education. So when we talk about adoption rates and how much people use us and where we live and how we need to be segmenting our content, this is why, because people are looking for information, and if that information is inaccurate or skewed or incorrect, there will be a huge problem and disconnect between you and the potential audience that you have that you're trying to grow an enrollment class from.
I'll also add, Jesse, here, again, having seen much of this data for quite some time, it has stayed within this ballpark on informational being the largest part, navigational, YouTube, and then clicking because you're too tired to put in the .com. But those have been big chunks of Google types of searches for quite a long time. So again, as we are, it's great to know that there's consistency, but as more consumers are leveraging Chat or Gemini or Claude or others, it is still something to watch on. It's deeply informational searches that we are seeing within the AI searches that are happening. So it's going to continue to be there, which is why content and information is key here.
Yeah, I think that that's a super important point to make. A lot of times when we think about higher education enrollment marketing and what, how we're thinking of students, especially graduate students, we think of it more as a transactional relationship than experiential versus a traditional undergraduate student. It's worth noting here that even still, that transactional nature is something that happens post research. It happens post all the time, all the information that they've gathered themselves. So they are still like in the informational segment, and they are not just going to click on your site and make a transaction. It's a big jump for them to make. And so this informational research arena is something that graduate students really do engage with. That is how they are engaging with your content, is they are trying to find out which choice is better. So they're living in this band, and if they aren't getting the right information, they're not going to engage with the program. Let's walk through a little bit of where we were before and what it looks like now and what the implications of that are. This is a screenshot of Google search before AI. The original, as Dave said, it was constantly changing, but in general, this is what we're thinking of. We're thinking of Google before AI, which is that search ads would populate the top results based on their keyword bidding and audience targeting, okay? I'm looking in a region within 90 miles of this point, and I want anybody who says MBA program, online MBA program, graduate studies, whatever, I want them to see my ads. I live in Cincinnati. You can see I did this quick search, and then I got 3 schools ads, right? Like UC, Xavier, Cedarville, right? Like they are bidding on keywords, and they're targeting their audience based on the regionality. So this is what AI overviews look like, right? Like this is the first step of Google search. Google search essentially has 2 AI search tools. The first is embedded directly into search results called AI overview. It is an embedded response that triggers off of specific keywords. So it is triggering off of keywords, but it is giving semantic answers, right? If I just look for UT Austin School of Law JD program, I do not get an overview, right? Because what it is triggering off of is that tuition keyword, where now it knows I'm interested in the program and I'm interested in how much it costs. I probably want to see how much it costs both for residents and non-residents, and like see some other information. So it populates that at the top, and it may be exactly the word or the information that I'm looking for. And so I don't need to go anywhere else. I want to know what the tuition is. I found the tuition, right? And so there are results under it. I can go to the organic site, but I may have gotten everything I needed just with looking at that. And so that is what AI Overview does, and it's the service it provides to prospective students. As of now, it's it's not a firm percentage point, but it's about 30% or a little over 30% of Google searches will return AI overview results depending on the keywords that the users are using.
And Jesse, I want to jump in here really quick too, because so with 30% of the searches now returning AI overview, there's still 70% that isn't, right? And even with the search engine results page changing, if you're thinking like, well, then what's the point of running paid ads if they're just getting pushed down? Google ad spend in 2024 globally still was over $220 billion. And in Q1 of 2025, spend on Google search specifically was up 9% year over year. So Q1 of 2025 compared to Q1 of 2024. But the amount of search traffic, or the clicks specifically, was only up 4%. So what that means is that as this search engine results page changes, paid search is still very relevant. It's still almost the short-term piece of being in there, because we know that with geo search, with same as what SEO has been, that's going to take more time. If we're updating content, if we have to make sure that the sites are being crawled and that the right information is being placed into these AI learning models, paid search is still really relevant, and the spend is still there. So it's important that we're still, we know where the change is going, but we're not necessarily moving away from what we have been doing. It's just continuing to evolve and making sure that we're staying relevant in our keywords, that we're taking up space on the search results page too. Because, if people are staying in LLMs, in the AI search platforms, and they're not even clicking through to the website, then the opportunity we have to get your school in front of them is obviously through AI, and then any paid search spots that we can take up on the first page. So I wanted to say, like, it's paid search is still very relevant because it's not fully AI yet, and the spend is still there. It's just getting more competitive. So it's the left hand talking to the right hand. It's both that come into play.
I'll add, as AI mode and AI overviews continue to grow, I'm sure Google will start to figure out ways to put in the paid ads into this as well. There's experiments happening. This was announced at GML in May of 2025. But yes, having your brands, your schools in paid ads will only also help, to Rebecca's point, capture, depending on where the search is happening, it's still a great place to be.
Mm-hmm. And that I love that point, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because from the platform side, specifically with Google Ads too, we're seeing more AI, more opportunity in the platform itself when it comes to the tools that we have accessible to us to help be more relevant, to help layer in with the overall search. So yeah, I mean, just to narrow it down, it's changing, it's transitioning, and there's still more to come. So it's important to, be as many places as we can, essentially.
Absolutely. And Dave, I love the point. Had this same exact thought, which is Google's entire, business structure is through ads or funnels through ads. So it is only a matter of time before AI mode, AI review has some sort of advertising component to it. It just does not holistically at this point, but it will continue to be so important to have a strong digital marketing search strategy, because it still is the gold standard for conversions. But this is one of the reasons why we're having this webinar and having this discussion today, is because we're at the tip of the spear of this thing. Google AI search came out in May to everybody. It is going to change. It is now September, right? Like, we're going to see changes in the next few months, and then the next few months after that. So knowing what's happening at the beginning can be so relevant to your ongoing organic strategy, so that you know what the challenges are right now, what the challenges will be going forward. Right now, we don't know what as an AI search will look like. Will they be embedded into the answers? Will you be able to have specific subjective text that will come up in answers based on your keywords or your, like whatever data you have? We don't know. So we're gonna be watching that. But right now, having a strong organic strategy as well as a strong paid search strategy is the best route that any program can take.
I'll also add to that note, Jesse, while I know we have been talking predominantly about Google, Perplexity, Chat, they're going to have to monetize their audiences as well. So this is not just a Google conversation. This is a AI search and chat conversation, and it may take them a little while longer, but I do know they are hiring up on the ads sales side in those platforms. So that means there's something to come in the coming quarters as they figure out how to better monetize their user base.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a great point. These companies have had too much investment, right, to have no way to then monetize the service that they're providing. It simply is unsustainable. So there is going to be across the board some way in which these tools are being monetized, whether some decide to go to a full subscription model that they feel like can pay for everything, or they're going to go to ads for everybody because it's a better way to kind of make that cost be amortized across the whole audience. So I agree. This is not a Google situation. It is going to be all the tools that are available. So just to quickly, we've been talking around it and through it, but just to give a firm example now, what AI mode is and what it looks like. As Dave said, you can see here, the queries are longer. They feel like they're trying to talk to somebody that is then synthesizing everything they're saying to them as if it is an advisor, right? Like an AI advisor agent to them. What I love about Google and AI search is when they give an answer, they fully cite it. They show every site that they use in making the answer, And then you can see here the little link clicks on the different statements. If you click that, it will show specifically what site they drew it from. And then if you click into the website, it will have the content highlighted that it is drawing from. So from an administrative position, this is one way that you can check yourself, is to simply run queries about yourself and then see what information it's finding and where it's finding it. The issue in general with AI search is that students are not doing that step. They're not clicking through to the site. They're not checking it for accuracy. So while Google provides it, the audience is not necessarily engaging with it. So as we said before, these tools use the same semantic search algorithm. They're just providing different services. AI Overviews is embedded in Google search, is giving short, truncated answers to what it thinks that you're asking in the Google search bar. AI mode is the more thing that's exactly like Gemini, ChatGPT, where it is immediately crawling the internet searching for answers, but it is doing it in a semantic and natural language way. So what sort of adoption rate are we seeing with AI mode? In 2 months, meaning May to June, AI mode engagement grew to 1% of all Google searches. So again, in a month, we're seeing 448 billion Google searches. 1 million of those searches in May and June grew to 1% of that. That is a lot of searches. We are going to see adoption rate rise on that. But right now, we have a lot of engagement. And as Dave said, this is not the only platform. It is just one platform. But because it is synced to the way that almost the entire world searches for information on the internet, that is a strong indicator to how they will engage with it because it's right in front of them. So what this use case looks like is that we are going to see these AI agents, this AI activity, be substitutional to human access to publisher websites, meaning they are not going to your website. There is a digital veil that is being drawn between your organic page and the user absorbing the content that is on your organic page. You are no longer fully in control of the content that many users are seeing because they are not seeing it on your site. They are seeing it through this third-party AI search bot, whether they're using Google, whether they're using ChatGPT, etc. It doesn't matter. They're using that instead of your content. And as we've said before, 92% of users don't check their AI answers. That is not, we're not talking about a majority, we're talking about 8% are the ones that do, right? Like 92% do not use or do not search for any sort of research for if this is correct or not. They just assume it's correct. This is a problem. As we said earlier, the challenge may be that there's inaccurate information, inconsistent information, right? Subjective information that you are not in control of.
To the audience of deans and administrators on this call, or webinar, I should say, look, this is not, in my rough analogy, this is something you all have engaged with, and many of us in different businesses have engaged with. If I go back, and I'm going to date myself, but I might have done some research through a large paper-bound catalog that resembled Kaplan's or U.S. News and World Report, where you as an institution were feeding information to them. And then that, as a prospective student, looked through, flipped through, got some certain facts. But that's, if you will, the current analogy where these AI search modes are able to, of course, quickly condense down some information based on the query that they're pushing or asking, the information that they're looking for. Some may not click, as Jesse said, but some might go a little deeper and get to your website, get to another source. And I think it's that same paradigm of before, years and years ago. Yes, there wasn't the internet. You had to make sure you were feeding the right information to the right key sources that collate it all. Now, it's the same analogy. You're having to feed and make sure, in a new world with even more technology, how can you help a prospective student answer the types of queries that they're thinking about for graduate school to make sure that you have your right content in there, but also have the ability to then get to your website. And certainly a lot of things that I've shared to other clients and brands, it isn't about measuring website clicks anymore. It's now about measuring what happens in many different instances around and how your content shows up.
Yes, absolutely. I think that the measurement point is very important, which is that we are going to see a shift in how we think of successful engagement with the audience. We're going to be looking further downstream for the ways in which we can infer that students are engaging with their content based on, you know, requests for information forms, applications, right? Like full enrollments. Like these things down funnel will be more indicative of upstream efforts, because looking at the normal engagement statistics on a website now will be inherently flawed because the ways in which they are engaging with their content is offsite.
Well, just even from like conversion standpoints, right? When we're tracking campaign, looking at some of those leading indicators, right? Knowing that it isn't just, this simple linear movement anymore. And that if anything, it's more of this picture of the full ecosystem and what do we know? What are we gauging? And just, again, some of those leading indicators in terms of what's the overall behavior, not just the thing. Because even in the platforms, now the attribution models that even Google's using are a lot different. It used to be this last click, right? Whatever you clicked on, you went to the website, that's the thing. And now it's really more about data driven. And so it's what are all the different components that are coming into the conversion points and into getting traffic over to sites. It's not just a linear model anymore.
Okay, so there's the challenge. There's what we are. There's what the landscape looks like right now. Again, obviously, this is going to change over time as things get more complex and AI search and ChatGPT kind of change the way that they're engaging with users. But what can we do right now? What are things you can take back to campus right now where you can have discussions for what your strategy is, what your content strategy is for both generative engine optimization as well as search engine optimization, so you can make sure that these things are working in harmony. So, just to give a quick overview of what we're talking about with these terms, search engine optimization, right? That's the old school, still very fundamental, still very foundational, and still very important, which is how Google indexes your content and where it puts you on the list when somebody searches for you, which involves keyword research and targeting, right? Like, do you have the right keywords on your content? Do you have the right things so that you are being found organically? There are things you can have technical conversations with your staff back at campus of, does our on-page search SEO, like, does that look good? Are we writing that way? And on the back end, technical SEO, otherwise referred to as like schema markup, right? Like there's a file on the back page of your website called robots.txt. Is that set up correctly so that we are being found organically in the way that is most advantageous to us? Or like that is what SEO wants and needs. It wants this back-end work, it wants keyword research and targeting. Generative engine optimization is fundamentally using similar concepts, but it needs different things. Just like I showed in the earlier challenge where University of Tennessee, if I look for it on AI search, it currently gives an incorrect answer versus an organic, like a regular search term, it does find it. They are using similar tools, but they are digesting content in different ways. Generative engines want segmented chunks of data. They want a heading and an answer to the question that heading prompts, such as tuition. Tuition is blah, 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 and a little paragraph about that. That way it can parse, they're talking about tuition regarding this program. Here's the answer to what tuition is. Now when somebody asks what tuition is, I answer it and cite this source. If we're talking about programs, it is listing the programs, saying what you have, saying what they do, and then having a balance between redundancy and unique content. As we said before, adoption rates on this are still low, right? Like relatively low. We're talking about 1% to 2% of traffic. So you do want your organic site to not have a poor user experience because it keeps repeating the same information on different pages. However, these engines cite authority from repeated information. If you have the same answer in different places, it will find that in its fan out query, that we'll talk about fan out in a second. It will find that and it will be like, oh, okay, I can see this happening over and over and over again. I know that this is the answer. It feels more confident in that, and so it presents that as the answer. Finding a balance between how many times you put how much your program costs and what the application requirements are, so that it's not a poor user experience when people are like trying to find data and they or find information and they keep seeing the same thing over and over again to get annoyed. But these engines need a certain amount of redundancy. Finding a balance between that is going to be critical. In the same breath, technical GEO, Generative Engine Optimization, there's a different backend need that GEO wants than SEO. It needs a different sort of schema markup. It needs some different flags. There's currently a new standard coming out called LLMs.txt that is not currently standard, but it is something that the industry is kind of going back and forth on of whether it's helpful or not. So those things are discussions you need to be having with your team on campus to make sure that your website is structured in a way that when people search for you through these tools, they are finding correct information and that they're not getting inconsistent results. One thing that you do have going for you as an institution is that higher education has an inherent authority. Authority is a term, it's from SEO, it's not a new term, it is an old term. And it is a critical part of the algorithm that Google uses to kind of weigh what links come first when you do a search. And authority is a heavy part of that. .edu sites have the most authority inherent to them. The only one that has more is a .gov site. So when you have a .edu site, your content is immediately weighed as more authoritative than anybody else's. So third-party sites, .coms, .orgs, whatever, you have more authority for having the correct information than any of them automatically. That is a huge advantage for universities. The issue is it's not the entire part of the equation. If you have incorrect or inconsistent information and other sites seem to have more confident, more repeated, more consistent information, they will be cited first. It is not a get out of jail free card. You have to have good content. You just do have an inherent advantage so that AI search, ChatGPT, these search tools are weighing your inherent pages with more authority than others. That is a huge advantage that universities have, but you still have to do your end of the equation of making sure that your content is correct.
A short quip in that it's probably a wonderful benefit that Google, way back, founded by the co-founders Larry Page and Sergey Brin, were doing their research at Stanford and building their search engine ranking page or algorithms using Stanford's .edu. And again, they were graduate students then, so I'm sure having that at the heart of how PageRank worked all the way back 26 plus years ago is a helpful thing for higher ed currently.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was just going to say too, I think it's important to distinguish authority online is not the same as reputation in the real world. So when we're talking about authority online, like you could be one of the most reputable educational systems in the country, and if you aren't showing up in the same authoritative manner from Google's perspective, it's going to not benefit you. So I just wanted to make that distinction because I think it's an important one, that authority does not equate to reputation in the real world.
Yeah, absolutely. And the opposite is true, right? Where you could be a school that does not have a large reputation,
Mm-hmm.
but you still have a very highly weighted authority as long as your content is valuable. So schools can quote unquote punch above their weight, right? Like that you can be a smaller institution, but still rank highly because if your content is good and you're under this, the SEO that people will be searching for, you will rise to the top because you have that .edu site. So it works both ways, essentially. That's a great point. Okay, so how can we use this positively? How can we use it to our advantage? Instead of having an example, it's like, here's where it's going wrong. Here's something that I think can go very right for institutions. I think that for graduate programs in particular, this is a very powerful benefit of AI search, and the way that it engages with content is that when you put organic content on your site, meaning not just, what's our program, here's what it is, like informational like that, but rather we have some blogs about 5 reasons why this program is good, right? Like things like that. That is in general a good practice anyway. That is good SEO practice, is generally what users are looking for when they're trying to discern what is a good program for them to go to. It kind of gives context. So it's valuable information and valuable content. From a GEO perspective, it can completely change how you are presented in an AI search. So in this example, with George Washington's online engineering program, if you look for them in AI search and look for what they cost, you will see what I've highlighted here as part of their tuition rate. This tuition rate is considered competitive when compared to other top-ranked master's in engineering programs, which can cost $1,500 to $2,000 or more per credit hour. This is a very subjective answer, and generally AI search tools do not give subjective answers. They will give kind of pluses and minuses or just points of comparison. They won't make judgment calls because it's not what they're built to do. The people who develop these things know that they are kind of taking sources from all over the place. They're not looking to make firm stances because they know that they can be incorrect sometimes. And so they try to hedge as much as possible the software doing that. So why is it doing it? This is pitched as a purely objective kind of point about their program. Like it doesn't, who is saying that the tuition rate is considered competitive? Well, George Washington University is, right? Like their own site is saying they have this blog up that they've had since January where it's saying a subjective answer of, we offer it at $1,200. This is competitive, right? Like this positions us competitively against other among peer institutions, which is absolutely true. That it's not like they're giving wrong information. They're saying true information in a subjective manner. And the AI search bot is, because this is an authoritative website, is digesting that and spitting it back out and saying, yeah, man, competitive program here for their competitive tuition. This is a huge, huge, huge point of emphasis for any graduate program, is to put content on your site that is valuable, informative, and true, that can give subjective spins to your program. So that when people look at it, they're not just seeing it cost $36,000 the end. It says it costs $36,000 and that's cheaper than other programs in its space, and it's, like, while it being high quality. That's doing marketing for you, right? Like that is doing the legwork for the school, and it is presenting it as a kind of third-party objective AI answer that people will ingest. And like we said, they're not checking. They're just going to say, that'll be a point that they take with them anytime they're talking about this program. They'll say, well, I'm thinking about George Washington and University of Tennessee, but George Washington is priced competitively, right? Like now it's become part of the discussion, and it's become part of their data set about the school without them going to this blog, without them going to this website. They have now ingested the content you've put out, and they've ingested it in a way that positions you in the most favorable light. This is what we're talking about when we're talking about generative engine optimization. It is not just about accurate information. It is about market position. How do we talk about ourselves? How do we position ourselves when you are not in control of the information that's going out in a holistic way, right? Like they're not coming to your website. How do we use this to our advantage? So what on the back end are we talking about when we talk about search models? How do we work them? How do we test them? How do we make sure that our content is being seen correctly? So the first step is understanding what content needs to be on your website. So we need to figure out, do we have the right information for the students that are coming? We know that 75% of grad students are looking to advance their career. They are focused on critical topics: cost, convenience, career, right? Like they are thinking about, how do I get this degree at the best cost for me with the most convenient time so that I can advance, I can get promoted, right? Those three things should be the most repeated topics on your program's page. You need to be repeating them, repeating answers to them. Every bit of content should be in alignment with one of these things, because when people ask or type in queries in an AI search, that this is what they're going to be looking for, and it's going to be building an answer based on the inferences that it's making. So the first step is, what does our content need to be? How are we making sure that it's represented on our website? What does the back end of an AI search tool look like? The first step is fan out testing. Okay, when somebody asks one question, an AI search bot asks 30 questions. So I'm just giving a little bit of visual representation here. There's obviously, this goes on and on, but I ask as Dave said, conversational question. It's 2 sentences long. It's asking about multiple factors. The AI takes that question and fans it out into multiple different vectors, some vectors that I have not even asked, okay? I don't ask about LSAT scores, but it knows that it should be looking at LSAT scores. I don't ask about an alumni network. It knows that I'm probably interested in what the alumni network will provide for me after my graduation. I don't tell it my personal background, but because in general, Google, for instance, AI search from Google is tracking your history and tracking everything that you're searching for, both in normal search and chat search. It knows that I have an interest in environmental law, and it adds it to this response because it knows that I'm looking for an environmental law program, even though I don't ask it. So this is what what fan-out testing can do for you. There's software that can be run for this, that you can kind of make your own test and test your own program. You need to be thinking of an age-old concept in marketing, which is personas. Different people with different search histories on these tools will get different answers, even to themselves each time they search. So you need to have different personas built out that then have, like Google accounts tied to them so that you can do testing on them to see when a single mom with 3 kids who's looking to get a business degree, and she has all these queries about different stuff, childcare, etc., and she asks about a program, here's what she gets. Here's what it's inferring she will be interested about. That information is so critical to making sure that your content is being ingested by different audiences in the way in which is most valuable to them and advantageous to you. It is fundamental to how these things work that they are building personas of the users as they use them. What should you be looking for to wrap things up? What is a checklist you can take back to campus? What are conversations you should be having with your marketing team, with your tech team? What are you kind of needing to take away from this? The first is, does our website consist of segmented information across the most important answers to common questions? Cost, convenience, career, right? Like application requirements, deadlines, program concentrations. Do we have this information repeated? Is it repeated across multiple instances of the website? Right? Like those are things that we need to be thinking about and things that we need to be organizing on our website. And across, again, one thing I didn't mention before, but is kind of goes without saying, university websites are massive behemoths. There are different units that have different content control that may apply to your program. We need to be coordinating with those units to make sure that the content is accurate across the board so that depending on where these search bots take information, they're not grabbing information from a different part of campus that doesn't have the right information up. Talk to your marketing team, tech team about schema markup and validation and format. These are things that they will understand and they should know how to engage with, is to make sure we have a good strategy for those. Do fan out testing often against marketing personas that you will build out for the people who generally engage with your program. So think about what they're asking. Think about how they're asking it. Think about using software that will be able to run fan out equations for you and see what comes up when you do so. That is the only way to really see kind of how the breadth of which these tools are going to be engaging with your content. So building up personas and searching against yourself, super important. Searching for yourself against competitor schools, seeing what the AI search tool says when you say, University of Tennessee versus University of Alabama law programs. What does it say, right? Like, you need to be able to see that, run those countermeasure tests against any competitive or competitors in the market. And then putting new organic content that answers common questions, as I had the example with George Washington, so critically important to have that content come out, have it in a way that gives absolutely 100% accurate information, but does it in a way that can be fed into an AI search query that will give you an advantageous position for the answer that they're giving. That won't just give kind of a straight up and down answer of it costs this, the deadlines are this. Are you more flexible than competitors? Are you less expensive than competitors? Are you higher quality than competitors? That should be front and center in organic content that can be segmented and chunked out. The AI search bot will take it into consideration, will spit it out, and then when they search for University of Tennessee versus University of Alabama, it may say UTK is less expensive, right? Like off the bat, right? Like, and just say it. Like, you need to be organizing organic content that highlights your strengths and uses it in a way that will give the most advantageous response from a search bot. And with that, we're done. This is a big topic. This is a ever-changing topic. We're going to be seeing a lot of change in the next 6 months, but I hope that you guys were able to find information here and have this be valuable. And with the time we have left, we can definitely take any questions from the audience that have been going before or during the presentation.
Yeah, and Jesse, we do have a few questions. So this first one is related to marketing, so I'll take it if you guys are good with that. They ask, so our marketing team is already stretched thin, managing events, the annual fund, alumni communications, et cetera, et cetera. It's not really realistic for them to stay on top of all the changes in how students search for grad programs. What don't we know, and what do we need to change? So first and foremost, the empath in me, you are not alone, okay? This is the biggest challenge that we're seeing right now across higher ed, right? There isn't enough time to be doing everything. And the way students are searching, it is changing. And when there isn't a guarantee that they're going to come to your website, in their research, of course, it does create an urgent need to address this sort of stuff. But again, it's layering on top of what's being done, right? So hopefully there's a content strategy in place. Hopefully there's an SEO strategy in place. We know that there's paid search strategies in place. It's not taking away from any one of those. It's just adding that extra layer to make sure that we're really addressing, to Jesse's point, that cost, the convenience, the career focus when it comes to the content on the website. So it's prioritizing, again, it is urgent. Like, we saw the adoption rates in terms of how people are starting to use this. I think, in the one example you had, Jesse, the January blog post from George Washington Law was posted in January. The tool for AI mode became available in May. So was there a 5-month lag? Yes, but it was already starting to pick up that traction, So it is an urgent need. It's not moving away from things you've been doing. It's just looking at things through a different perspective and making sure that your content on the site is answering those questions that are most important, most relevant for the people that are looking, for the cost, convenience, the career focus of the program. But we know you can't do everything. So also, shameless plug here, our team of experts can help with that, because we know there's so many other things. So it's not changing what you're doing, but it is adding a layer where we can, of course, come in and help. So I want to take that first one. Dave, actually, I think this one will be a good one for you. If you were sitting in the dean's chair, what would you prioritize today to make sure your programs aren't invisible in GEO?
Thank you, Rebecca. Look, I think wonderful to imagine me sitting in the dean's chair, but no, I think Jesse covered a fair amount in that checklist a handful of slides ago. It's putting yourself in the mind of the prospective student now, and how they are able to, yes, access so much more information, but to understand its cost, its convenience, it's some of the persona fanouts that are happening that can better answer what is top of mind now that they have so much more computing power or resources to better collate and answer. I'm here in Chicago. Is it Northwestern, UC, DePaul, Cal-Stat, UIC? What is the best graduate school for me? That is a normal search now. And I think you have to think about, as an administrator or a dean, having that content part of your overall content strategy, your press strategy, and allowing it, as Jesse was talking about earlier in the webinar, allowing all the GEO as well as the Google robot stacks and other bots to find this easily digestible but understandable conversational information that may not have a place on your website today, but probably should have a place on your website today. And to Rebecca's last point, having partnered with agencies for many years at Google, going to experts in this field who know and can build personas and be a part of the graduate school undertaking, I think is a great way to further align and make sure that you are doing things in a style that keeps you current. Because I will say, you just have to constantly evolve. That is the one thing that probably all of us on the digital marketing side love about our industry. It changes constantly, and therefore everything is an iteration for this month to next month. It keeps us on our toes. You all as deans and administrators may not like the constant pace of change, but that is our ecosystem today.
And I want to be cognizant of time, but we do have one more question that I think will actually be a nice perspective from Dave sitting in the dean's chair. So Jesse, for you here. So if you're not the dean, how do I convince my dean that with federal funding cut and competitors moving fast in AI search, that we have to act on GEO now so that we don't lose prospective students?
So I have two answers to that question. The first is, or I'll make the second self-serving, but the first is, this is a live service, right? Like, this is not something that is coming. This is something that is here. And so I would say the easiest thing to do immediately is to get on Google or go to ChatGPT and start searching yourself. See what content it's finding. See what content it's getting wrong. See if it's getting it right, right? Like, this is not all, doom and gloom. Like, I've searched a lot of schools. A lot of them have had, when I ask for answers, it's generally giving me the correct information. So the challenge to you is to put that information together and say, this is what students are seeing right now. Like, is it a 5-alarm fire like at UTK where it's like, our program does not exist to this entity? That is something that I think speaks to leadership, where it is saying, here's the situation right now. Right now it's bad, right? Like, that's what you need to be able to, because this stuff can be, we've taken a while to talk through it. There's a lot of context here. There's a lot of background. There's a lot of information and technical complexity to some of these answers. Being able to just straight up and down say, here's an issue right now. We need to be looking at this content. It goes further than this, I think will speak to leadership. I would also say having somebody come in that can present that information as a third party can sometimes be very helpful to leadership. It is not just that, they're bringing in an expert and you aren't valued. It's simply having a voice that is looking comprehensively at the market and having somebody who can say, we are seeing this across the industry. It is not just you, and other schools are moving on this, right? I think for deans, for marketing leaders, for leadership in higher ed, knowing that they are not alone in having to solve a problem is helpful for moving forward, because there is a lot of they have a lot of priorities. They have a lot of things that they're thinking about from a 5-year strategic plan, from an 18-month, like, what are we doing right now plan. There's a lot of different irons in the fire there. So bringing something new needs to be something that they can see as it needs to be fixed, fairly quickly, and we need to be addressing it now so that it doesn't kind of gain momentum over time. And we know that other institutions, most if not all institutions, are going through this same process. We cannot be left behind. Being left behind with this subsection of the way in which people are conducting research is going to be very detrimental to the health of your program. One thing that I didn't say earlier in the presentation that I meant to cite is that we know that graduate students are actually searching for or researching fewer schools now than they were just 3 years ago. The general amount of programs that a student is researching is 2 to 3, if not 1 to 2. If you are not in the top 3 of their consideration set and AI search is not finding you in general queries, your program may as well not exist to them. You have to make sure that you are visible at all times to anybody who is interested in your programs that matters to you, right? If you're having an online program and thinking about national reach, if you're residential, thinking about regional reach, you need to be in a student's consideration set. And if you are not, you need to be at top of mind in the organic search and the GEO search so that you will become part of their consideration set and that the information that they find is accurate and valuable and compelling. So to me, that's kind of a long answer, but what you should take to leadership is that this is an issue that needs to be fixed as soon as possible, and it is an ongoing maintenance. This is not a set it and forget it thing that you can handle for your program. It is a consistent, constant maintenance that is happening so that you can make sure that your presence is in the most advantageous position as possible for the program.
One thing I want to add to that is that, the impact and the resources that are put into this will not go to waste, right? Like, this is the mortgage of your online marketing. This is the long-term investment. So while it can be, yes, another layer or there's more to it and, it's moving fast, the impact and it's long-term. So it will be beneficial for the long haul. So that wraps up our Q&A portion and, the webinar as a whole. So if you're wondering about next steps, this was a lot of information. Jesse, you gave some great, we've got the checklist, the things that we can walk away with. The first thing to do, really, go and have the conversations with your team, right? Understand what foundation you're working off of right now, and if there's a strategic plan for the content and for your marketing moving forward, how you're going to monitor everything and whatnot. So next would be bringing in somebody to help have that conversation, looking at, how Jesse mentioned this assessment of the market, right? Like, what is happening across higher ed as a whole? How do we look at things a little bit more technically? We are here to help you with that. So we will please reach out and we'll make sure you have contact information for us to come on board and help have some of those meetings with you. But thank you all for your time today. And we look forward to continuing this conversation and this journey of AI search with you.